So let's explore the changing politics and the strange bedfellows aspect of that shift with two members of Congress at the forefront, Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky and Democratic Congressman Dennis Kucinich of Ohio. Congressman Kucinich, I want to start with you because you filed this lawsuit over Libya. The president sent up a packet of information tonight, including a legal memo asserting the administration is not in violation of the War Powers Resolution. He says what's happening in Libya does not meet the bar for hostilities abroad. Do you agree?
No. Our lawsuit, by the way, addresses Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution and the War Powers Act, and we assert that the president has violated both the Constitution in not coming to Congress and the War Powers Act and not getting approval from Congress within the requisite 60 days.
And so you're not swayed tonight at all?
No, I mean, I've seen the argument already, John. It's just, it doesn't pass legal muster, and I think that when we get to court with this, if we can get standing, we'll win.
Senator, do you share that opinion? Is the Commander-in-Chief of the United States in violation of the law?
Yes, I agree completely with Congressman Kucinich, and I think people on the left and the right can both believe in the Constitution, and our founders were very specific. They wanted the initiation of war to be by Congress. They said Congress shall declare war, but they didn't want the president to be able to go to war unilaterally without any congressional authority. In fact, candidate Barack Obama said exactly that in 2007. We wish the president would act more like the candidate Obama.
Any concern to each of you, gentlemen? Senator, you first on this one. Any concern at all that by publicly talking about your position right now, when some believe the military operation is near a tipping point, that you could embolden Gaddafi, that he could think the president of the United States has a political problem back home, I should hang on?
No, and I've never been a fan of Colonel Gaddafi, and in fact, I think we shouldn't have been sending him money. Many of the people who now want to attack and get rid of Gaddafi supported the bank bailout, which sent the Libyan National Bank money through AIG. So we've been sending foreign aid and money to Libya, and I think that's been a mistake for years, and now we're going to fight a war against him. But most specifically, we cannot and should not fight war unless we do it through congressional action as the Constitution intended.
Any concern, Congressman Kucinich, that Gaddafi could make the case, I'm going to hang on, America's getting soft?
Listen, there are a lot of people in the world that we would prefer weren't presiding over their governments. But our first challenge is to abide by our Constitution. And when we fail to abide by the Constitution, everything else that follows is going to be poisoned. So we must go back to the founders' wisdom, which was to separate the war power from the executive and to have it firmly reside in the hands of the Congress. And that's why we went to court today, John. And I'm hopeful that we'll get a decision that once and for all will establish that the founders intended for Congress to have the war power and that no president can take this country into war on his own instance.
We're having new pressure on Afghanistan as well. Senator Paul, you're among 27 senators who wrote a toughly worded letter to the president today saying, Mr. President, bin Laden is dead. The Afghan government is corrupt. Nation building is an idea that will not work. It is time to accelerate the drawdown of U.S. troops. Secretary Gates was on Capitol Hill today. He said he understands the frustration that you have, the frustration the American people have nearly a decade into this war. But he said there is a but involved to coming out so fast, and he says it's a big but. Listen.
I know people are frustrated. The country's been at war for 10 years. I know people are tired, but people also have to think in terms of stability and in terms of the potential for reconstitution. What's the cost of failure?
That was George W. Bush's defense secretary, Senator Paul. Should you listen to him when he says he needs a little more time?
Well, I think when you go to war, you have to have objectives. And I agreed with going to war with Afghanistan. And had I been here, I would have voted to go to war with Afghanistan. But our objectives should be to disrupt the terrorist bases, to annihilate al-Qaeda, and to eliminate their leadership. I think we've largely succeeded in those objectives. There's another reason why you have to reconsider. One, we're not very good at building nations. It's very expensive. And our infrastructure in our country is crumbling. We have bridges we need in Louisville. We have bridges we need in Cincinnati. And we can't afford to be building bridges in Afghanistan. So we do have to reconsider our policy. And it's also how conservatives and liberals can come together to say, how can we balance this budget? You can't do it with a foreign policy that's everywhere all the time. We need to obey the Constitution, and we need to think about some of our interests here in our country.
Congressman Kucinich, you have been an anti-war member of Congress for quite some time. What do you make of this shift? There's a significant shift. I wouldn't say it's past any tipping point, but we do see a significant shift of a number of Republicans questioning whether they question the policy or whether they question the financial aspect. What do you make of what's happening on Capitol Hill?
Well, I want to agree with Senator Paul on what he just said. And the shift that you're witnessing is a very significant shift. And it's going to change the outcome of 2012 elections. Because what's happening is that in the Republican Party, you have members who are committed to the Constitution. And in the Democratic Party, you have members who are really concerned about the rising costs of these wars. And we have people coming together on the Constitution and the issue of the cost. And I think what happens as you see that confluence happening, John, it's going to change the outcome of Libya and of many other equations, Iraq, Afghanistan. Listen, we're spending trillions of dollars a war as our domestic economy is falling apart. Bridges, roads, water systems, sewer systems need repair. We have to start taking care of things here at home. And I think that more and more members have that awareness, and they just see these wars as being dangerous to our national security, not enhancing our national security, because they're eroding our ability to deal with things here at home.
Senator Paul, let me close on that point. Congressman Kucinich just mentioned he thought this would impact the 2012 campaign. A lot of Republicans share that opinion, but not in a positive way. Senator Lindsey Graham, the conservative senator from South Carolina, was referring to something Governor Romney said in our debate the other night about getting troops out of Afghanistan as soon as possible. Your father, Congressman Ron Paul, has made that case for quite some time. John Huntsman, another Republican candidate for president, says it's time to get out of Afghanistan. Here's what Lindsey Graham says about that. He says, quote, "From the party's point of view, the biggest disaster would be to let Barack Obama become Ronald Reagan and our people become Jimmy Carter." Senator Graham thinks the Republicans will look soft and weak here.
Well, I think the interesting thing is that since 2008, a lot of candidates are actually coming the way of Ron Paul. Michelle Bachmann also said on television that we shouldn't go to war in Libya without congressional authority. Haley Barbour talked about a little bit about some of the troops coming home from Afghanistan. There may be varying degrees, but many Republicans are having questions now.
So are John McCain and Lindsey Graham, are they wrong? Are they out of the mainstream?
I think we have a difference of opinion, and the Republican Party, there are some who believe that the president should have unlimited or inherent powers to commit war, and then there are those of us who think the president should be restrained by the Constitution, that Congress should declare war as is intended. This is just a difference of opinion, but the Republican Party is not monolithic, and there is a growing movement within the Republican Party. The New York Times this week had a poll that had 46% of Republicans saying we need to have a reduced footprint in Afghanistan. So I think you'll see candidates coming towards Ron Paul, and I think that's what you saw in the debate the other night.
Senator Rand Paul, Congressman Dennis Kucinich, remarkable just to see the two of you together, nodding your heads in agreement so much. Appreciate your time tonight. Gentlemen, we'll stay in touch in the days ahead. And still ahead here tonight, Pakistan angers the White House by detaining the informants who helped the United States find Osama bin Laden. But next, does the president's legal argument on Libya hold water?